wanted to come on to talk about dog theft. It's a real problem at the moment. There seems to be a real rise, especially since the lockdown periods from March 2020 onwards. I mean, it's always been a problem, but there has been a huge rise in it in the last year. And you'll see a lot on social media of things that have been happening to people with their dogs. People are still tying up their dogs outside shops and leaving them there, and I'm not sure why they're doing that. You wouldn't leave your Louis Vuitton handbag or £500 or your baby outside a shop. So why are people still tying their dogs outside shops? They're not safe. You've seen a lot of clips on social media where dogs are just being dragged into cars, where they've been left outside a shop, where somebody's gone in and then somebody's come and took the dog, opportunists, right through to organised gangs that are doing things. People aren't feeling safe. They can walk in a park alone anymore, where they're being approached by men, by a couple of men at a time. You're hearing all kinds of things where these dogs are being taken. I think they're being taken for different reasons now. Before we had quite a problem where when you saw dogs for sale on the internet, you had to watch that kind of thing going on because puppy farms would buy them, but also dog fighting people. Seems to be a problem up north and in Wales predominantly for whatever reason, but now it's kind of spreading all around the country. I think since coronavirus in sort of March 2020 in this country, there's been a big rise with dog theft where criminals just need to have their supply for their demand. And what a lot of people don't realise is the organised crime that goes on with dog trafficking, coming in and out of the country and also spreading around the country, within the country. At the moment, we're suffering with a lockdown, and all the shops are shut. We can't even go out and leave our own towns at the moment. And what's happened is there's two things that have really had an impact for the criminals, is that it stopped them from doing their crimes so easily. So they can't really traffic dogs so easily anymore in and out and around Britain and in and out from offshore. They can't get them because they're having travel restrictions placed on them, so it's not so easy to smuggle dogs around. And also the shops have been shut. It goes right down to the normal sort of, I say normal, the basic thief, if you like, or person that needs to make money. A lot of drug users just try and steal anything to get their next fix, and they will go in and steal from shops. And a lot of our retail shops have been shut. And you'll see, go to parts of East London, you'll see people running down the road with big bags of nappies on their back, where they've just stolen a load of nappies from somewhere. And you think, oh, well, that's a bit of a weird thing to steal. But they steal things where there is a demand. They get supply where there is a demand. And people who can't afford nappies, they're very expensive to buy, they'll buy them illegitimately, illegally, off people that are selling them cheap. They do. And this is what's happening with the dogs now. There's money in dogs, there's money in selling dogs. It's not just the person, the average pet owner that's looking for puppies and dogs to buy, and they're not really familiar with where they're buying them. You've got organised crime gangs that have things like rescue centres around the country. Not all rescue centres are rescue centres. Some of them are a front for puppy farming and dog trafficking. And it's very hard when you're not in the pet industry to tell the difference between someone who's legitimate and someone who is. Even when you go to really registered kind of well-known organisations where you think you're going to get a registered breeder, say like the Kennel Club, for instance. All right, the Kennel Club is somewhere where you can register your dogs. They have to be pedigree, but the quality of the dogs aren't always great on there. I'm not talking about puppy farming or a legitimate dog selling on the Kennel Club, by the way. I'm just talking about the types of places where you're going to buy your dog from. For example, I know somebody that had a pedigree certificate for two dogs. And they were genuine pedigree. There was legitimate certificates. They were real pedigree dogs. However, one of the dogs, by default, these dogs had the pedigree certificate because their parents, the dog parents, were pedigrees. But these two dogs in particular, one, the female of the dog, was very, very undersized for the breed standard. and really shouldn't have a pedigree certificate because she was severely undersized for her breed standard. The other dog, the male dog in the same breed, had real aggressive temperament problems and skin problems as well. So not a great combination of dogs to have puppies with for many reasons. Very dangerous for an undersized dog to have the pups, or the female dog. And for the male, you know, why would you want to? You take the best one from your litter and you breed from there. You don't take your worst one from your litter with aggression problems, temperament problems, mental problems and skin problems, and then take the two and breed them. Those two dogs were registered as pedigrees with the Kennel Club, and because the lady paid her money, she became an approved breeder. She had a litter of pups with those dogs and made quite a lot of money out of it. Now, what I'm saying is although that was legitimate, it was not a great case for buying puppies. So it's like, well, where do you go then? You can't even go to the Kennel Club. That's the place where you think you should go. So I don't necessarily, I'm not the one to sort of always say, oh, go somewhere where you think it's okay. I sort of go a bit more deeper than that. You really need to do your due diligence and really do thorough research and thorough investigation about where you're going, so you know what type of dog you're getting, whether you're getting a healthy one, even if it has legitimately got a pedigree certificate with it. However, when you go to these rescue centres, you have to be very careful. You're not in some sort of organised crime puppy den as opposed to a rescue centre. I know some rescue centres that are independent and they're legitimate rescue centres, registered charities that don't have much money, they don't have a lot of backing, and they're not they're quite sort of run down because they're underfunded, but the dogs are very well looked after. There's a difference between a rundown kennel that doesn't have masses of money coming in and squalor. And I've also been in an illegitimate rescue centre, posing as a rescue centre, that was clearly just dog traffickers. I didn't know I was going into it. I was helping someone out looking for a puppy, and I walked straight into the most horrendous conditions I've ever seen dogs kept in. And it was awful. It was just awful to see. But I can sort of spot that and recognise that. And it's very hard for people to know where to get their dogs from. The only way you can really sort of stop the supply is if you calm down the demand. And I think that's going to continue to be a problem. How do you spot where you should be getting one from and when you shouldn't? When you've got people that don't breed for a living, for example, just hobby breeders, somebody that's had a litter with their dog that they've really loved, and they've had a litter. They're not necessarily going to register it as with a kennel club or anything as a pedigree. It might be a crossbreed, but they might just be hobby breeders, not puppy farms or anything like that. How do you know the difference between one of them and somebody that's fronting something that's really quite underground and quite dangerous and nasty? So there's a big problem there. All round there's a big problem, and the only thing we can do is be a lot more vigilant when we're out. When we go to parks, perhaps think about not just letting your dog off lead just to run free where it's not in your sight. Dogs are being picked up and snatched away when they're not in sight of their owners. We have a poo problem in parks anyway, where really we shouldn't really be letting our dogs off lead to poo freely where we can't see it, where we're not picking it up. Our dog should always be in our sight at all times for many reasons. But if we just kind of raise awareness and be aware of what's going on, be more vigilant. Even things like I read in the press where there was a fake RSPCA van where people had criminals had created a fake RSPCA van and tried to seize dogs that way. It's like big business to them at the moment. So just be very vigilant. It's not fair on our dogs with all this going on. I take security very seriously. I think, I don't think you could ever put too much security in place when it comes to the protection of your dogs, and I think we just all need to have more of a harder think about that, because it's happening everywhere and it's very common. It's a real problem. So I think it's good to network. I would really appreciate it if you would comment in the comments section to say whether anything's happened to you or what your thoughts are about this. Maybe it will get people talking to each other and networking and just raising awareness, really. So yeah, it's not a very nice subject, but one that does need to be discussed and needs to be out there. I don't think we're ever going to stop the big organised crime gangs. I know some people do some amazing things to try and stop puppy farming, and they try and put things in place. I think, this is big business. All you're going to do really is move. Criminals will move around, they'll move with the times. Criminals are very good at adapting with change, very good at adapting with change. It's a shame they can't do something really good in something instead of something really bad, because the one thing their strength is adapting with change, and not a lot of business, legitimate good business people are good at that. But criminals will adapt with change, and every time we try to stop things happening or something's put in place to make it harder, they will adapt with change, and they will be doing something because there's just too much money involved. So let's just make a conscious effort. Keep your phone number up to date on your dog's chip. Put trackers on your collars. Keep your dogs within your sight. Secure your homes more. Don't leave your dogs in the car. Don't leave your dogs tied up anywhere. Be careful who you let look after your dog. If you're somebody that lets your dog go to dog walkers and dog sitters and things, be careful with who you leave your dog with. Always second question where you're purchasing your dog from if you're having a new purchase. So I know it sounds a bit, do this, do that. I don't mean to come across like that. I don't like telling people what to do, and I'm not telling people what to do. I just simply think it's so important to raise awareness and for everybody just to share their experiences and anything useful anyone's got to say so somebody else can see it. This is a really important networking opportunity for people to do some good. So anyway, on that bright note, stay safe, everybody.